Good afternoon, everyone. Please take your seats. Welcome. I am Randy Hughes, and I'm Dean of the Graduate College, and it's my great pleasure to kick off the 2022 Emcee event here at the University of Oklahoma. I want to welcome our prospective graduate students who are here, as well as everyone who is here in person and also on our live stream for this event. Emcee is a research communication competition that are initiated by the University of Queensland in Australia in 2008. Competitions are now held in over 900 universities across more than 85 countries worldwide. Graduate students are challenged to present a master's or doctoral research in just 3 minutes in language appropriate for a non-specialist audience. Let me first give you a little bit of history about how this event originated, and this is quoting some material from the Queensland website. The idea for Emcee came about at a time when the state of Queensland was suffering severe drought. To conserve water, residents were encouraged to time their showers, and so many people had 3-minute egg timers to time their showers in the bathroom. The then dean of the graduate school, Emeritus Professor Alan Lawson, put 2 and 2 together for the idea, and the Emcee competition was born. For our students, this is a great opportunity to hone skills for effective public presentation, although we prefer that here today they don't do it while still in the shower. For OU, this is an excellent opportunity for us to showcase the breadth and quality of the work that our graduate students across the university are doing. It helps us to explain the value of graduate education to policymakers and the broader public. Historically, we have had about 40 to 50 entries in the preliminary competition rounds, and the top 10 presenters are then selected as finalists for this event today. In addition, we have sponsored a winner to present at the Midwestern Association of Graduate Schools competition, which this year will be in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, held April 6th through 8th. Last year, our winner of this event, Ali Rossi from the Gallagher College of Engineering, went on to win the Emcee competition at the Midwestern Association of Graduate Schools, and then just a few days ago gave a presentation for a national competition sponsored by the Council of Graduate Schools. He was one of 8 students from the United States, 1 from Mexico, 1 from Canada at that competition, and represented OU fantastically well. I hope that you'll please join us after the conclusion of this event in Baird Lounge, where we'll announce the winners. Please anticipate it'll take us about 30 minutes after we conclude the presentations here for the judges to pick the winner and the runner-up. There will be 3 cash prizes. The winner of this event, first place, will win a scholarship of $2,000. The runner-up will receive a $1,500 scholarship, and there's also a People's Choice Award. That's why we've encouraged all of our Emcee finalists to bring all their friends, family, anybody you meet on the street to come along. And I hope you'll actually watch all the presentations and judge them and give the one that you think is the best. But if you've been bribed to vote for your friend, do that as well. But the People's Choice Award is $1,000, and that can also be the same person who is the winner or the runner-up of this competition. That's often the case in the past. With that, I want to introduce our MC for this event today, and that is Anae Hyde. Dr. Hyde is an American historian, author, and professor here at the University of Oklahoma. She specializes in the history of the North American West, focusing on the 19th century, and is particularly interested in race and family history. She has published widely on the history of the American West and has been elected to the boards of the Western History Association and the American Historical Association. She is the author of Empires, Nations, and Families, a history of the North American West from 1800 to 1860. This was published in 2012. She's the winner of the Bancroft Prize and a Pulitzer Prize finalist. Her most recent books are Shaped by the West, History of North America, in 2 volumes, published in 2018, and Born of Lakes and Plains, Mixed Descent Peoples, and the Making of the American West, published in Northern Books in January of this year. She is the editor-in-chief of the Western Historical Quarterly, And prior to coming to Oklahoma, she taught at Colorado College for 2 decades, serving as the chair of the Race and Ethnic Studies program, and is director of the Partnership for Civic Engagement, the Hulbert Center for Southwest Studies, and the Crown Faculty Development Centers. Please join me in welcoming our MC, Dr. Hyde, to the stage.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here, to be live in person. I'm very excited to be at Emcee and present all of this new research. So because we're live, we've got some rules. So everybody please turn off your phones. And if you have a camera, don't use the flash. So turn the flash off and you can take some pictures. So as Dr. Hughes said, the goal of the 3MT competition is for students to present their research to us in a clear and concise manner in 3 minutes. We were just talking backstage about how difficult it actually is to be clear and concise and to be given to a wide audience. So this is the goal here. They can only use one static slide as a prop. And again, this is quite a challenge. I think about how you present all your work, your research work in one piece. So we've had several rounds of competition so far. This year there were 41 master's and doctoral students from the Norman, Tulsa, and Health Sciences Center campuses. And they did 6 days of preliminary competition rounds. And from that, today's 10 finalists were chosen. And as Dr. Hughes said, there's real cash involved here. So the first place is $2,000, the runner-up is $1,500, and the People's Choice Award, which is your very important job, is $1,000. So at the end of the presentation, you all will vote for the People's Choice Award. And in your program, there should be a little ballot, and you can choose, and so choose one person only. That's very important. You only get to vote once. And then as you leave, hand off your ballot to a graduate college staff member after the competition is ended. And then we'll announce the winners after the competition is over as a tiered round, because the judges have to go back and decide on how they're going to vote. Okay. So first, I'm going to introduce our 5 judges, and I'll introduce each one of them. First, we have Dr. Rodney Bates, who is an assistant professor in the Department of Women's and Gender Studies and a director of the Center for Social Justice. Dr. Bates' research and his professional activities continually focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And next, we have Dr. Angela Person. Oh, that's right, we should clap. Yeah. So Dr. Angela Person is the Director of Research Initiatives and Strategic Planning for OU's Christopher C. Gibbs College of Architecture, and her research engage environmental sustainability, architectural history and theory through human geography lens. And she's author of 3 books, including most recently Renegade, Bruce Goff, and the American School of Architecture, which won the 2021 Oklahoma Book Award. Next, we have Dr. Jeff Kelly, who is a George Lynn Cross Professor of Biology and Korex Chair in Water and Sustainability at the University of Oklahoma. His research focuses on applied aeroecology, which is the ecology of life in the air. Next, we have Dr. Farid Omoumi, who is Assistant Professor in the Department of Physics and Astronomy. Her research focuses on using simulated dwarf galaxies, which are the smallest and dimmest galaxies, as tools to constrain the elusive nature of dark matter. She's a faculty member for the Women in Physics organization and is a vocal advocate for equity and inclusion in STEM. Next, we have Dr. Shiva Raman, who is David Ross Boyd Professor, S.R. Noble Foundation Presidential Professor, and Morris R. Pitman Professor in Engineering and Director of Industrial and System Engineers. He's been on the OU faculty for 33 years, and he's an elected fellow of 3 major engineering societies, the ASME, the IISE, and the SME. He teaches in the areas of manufacturing processes, materials processing, and metrology. And now it's time for the 10 finalists to present their research. And again, because this is live, we're going to have a few minutes between each presentation because it's the score. So there's going to be sort of this awkward silence where we need something like Jeopardy. But you'll get the rhythm of this as we do what we do. So thank you very much as we're getting ready for the first one. Our first competitor is Anae Bain, and she's from the Department of Chemical, Biological, and Materials Engineering. Her title is Turning Plastic Waste into High-Value Products.
Do you know how much plastic waste will be leaked into the ocean only during this 3-minute talk? Over 100,000 pounds. In a year, that's 11 million metric tons of plastics. That's not one, but 2 Giza pyramids in the sea every year. That's only the ocean we're talking about. More than half of everything we produce ends up in landfills. Plastic is just piling up in the world. These materials do not biodegrade. They stay in the environment for hundreds and hundreds of years. And the situation is only getting worse. At this pace, by 2050, there will be more plastic than fish in the ocean. So I invite you to just think about a question. What can we do about this huge amount of waste we generate every day? Recycling, as we currently know it, is good, of course, but it's not going to solve our problem. Recycling consists of shredding the plastic, melting, and remodeling it. But here's the catch. Starting the process lowers the quality of the product, and because of that, most plastic can only be recycled once or maybe twice before they do not meet minimum quality standards anymore. Now, they have become useless. But here's one exciting solution. What if we use chemical reactions to decompose plastic waste into high-value products? Plastics are composed by very little molecules containing thousands of atoms. We can chemically break them down into small molecules that compose products like gasoline, diesel, and lubricants. The best way to control how such reactions happen is by using catalysts. Catalysts are materials that not only increase the speed at which a reaction happens, but also allow us to selectively choose where we are breaking the bonds. By breaking the plastic molecules in the correct positions, we can better control what products are being formed. But there's something more to it. No plastic is pure. All of them contain additives, such as antioxidants and light stabilizers. Through my research, I have found how some of these additives influence the decomposition reaction, and how, in the long term, they may modify the catalyst being used. Common sense tells us that these impurities will most likely kill their catalyst over time and jeopardize the reaction. But surprisingly, I found that some additives can even enhance catalytic activity. By understanding the role that each additive plays, we can better design efficient processes. Using this knowledge, my goal is to design a plastics together process in the next years. My dream is that 30 years from now, there will be 0 pounds of plastic being leaked into the ocean. What do you think?
Now we're ready for our second competitor. Competitor number 2 is Oyindamola Okuwa, and she is from the Department of Sociology. The title of this presentation is Women's Decision-Making Power and Contraceptive Use in Nigeria. So thank you.
Nigeria is Africa's most populous nation. In her lifetime, a Nigerian woman is expected to give birth to 5.5 children on average. Now, despite this high fertility rate, 1 in 22 Nigerian women will die during childbirth. Now, this is alarmingly high when you compare it to the 1 in 4,900 women who die during childbirth in most developed nations. Another interesting contradiction in the Nigerian reproductive health space is this. Despite this high maternal mortality, Nigeria consistently ranks low in contraceptive uptake. In fact, in 2018, only 14% of Nigerian women use any form of contraceptives. Now, contraceptives are important because they serve as a way for a woman to assert autonomy over her own reproduction. They're a form of resistance to patriarchy, and they're a stellar way to reduce maternal deaths and total fertility rates. These indices were some of the things that drove my interest in understanding the mechanisms behind contraceptive use in Nigeria. Using demographic health survey, I investigate the factors that influence contraceptive use among women in Nigeria. And the results I find are very interesting. I find that women's decision-making power is perhaps the most important factor influencing contraceptive use among women in Nigeria. Specifically, I find that when women can make their own healthcare and financial decisions, they are more likely to use contraceptives. Now, let me break this down a bit. I find that 23.5% of women who make their own financial decisions will use contraceptives, and only 9% of those whose husbands or partners make their financial decisions will use contraceptives. And this result was similar for healthcare decisions and when I control for education and other factors. The result of this is simply clear. Women's decision-making power matters. Now you might ask me, why should I care? Why should I care about women in Nigeria? I am African, and I firmly believe in the concept of Ubuntu, which means I am, because we are. Until women across the world, whether from Nepal, or from Chad, or from Niger Republic, or from Nigeria, can achieve their full potential, can see a reduction in maternal deaths, can see an improvement in the quality of life that they live, we cannot truly say we have developed as a global scale. Women's decision-making power matters. It matters for women in Nigeria, and it matters for women across the world. And my research will serve to shape and influence policy on this. Thank you very much.
Hey, round three. Just watching that clock makes my blood pressure. Quite a visual there. Okay, contender number 3 is Abdirahman Haibe, and he's from the Department of Civil Engineering. The title is Next Generation 3D Printed Polymers for Durable Infrastructure.
Just like students receive grades at the end of the semester, our infrastructure receives a grade as well. In 2021, the American Society of Civil Engineers rated C minus grade on our infrastructure. So what does that mean? It means that 42% of our bridges are 50 years old, 43% of our roadways are in poor condition, and main pipeline breaks every 2 minutes, wasting over 6 million gallons of treated water per day. To resolve this issue, we need to improve our materials. If we go back in history, we used to build our houses out of mud, which is very weak material. Then we discovered concrete and steel. Although the composite of the steel and concrete is very strong and works well, it still has some issues. It corrodes, it's very heavy, which decreases the strength and also complicates the construction process. So what's the solution? Fiber reinforcement polymers, also known as FRP, is an ideal alternative for steel in some applications. FRP is lightweight, it's very sustainable, has a high strength, and most importantly, does not hurt. However, the current FRP composite that we currently have is weak and it's very brittle and lacks ductility. Therefore, my research is focusing on improving FRP. So my research is going to focus on improving the ductility of FRP by using 3D printing technology. So with 3D printing technology, we can increase the strain of FRP up to 5%, which is 5 times more than a typical FRP. However, we will also need to improve the ductility itself. With the ductility, we can use in 3D printing by also integrating the fiber orientation and sequence stacking. We can increase ductility and create material that's ductile. Successfully improving the ductility of our FRB and while maintaining the strength will be a new and it's going to be the product of a new material that's far more stronger than steel. So my research, I aim to unlock the next generation FRB, and our infrastructure is going to be far more sustainable than it is today. Thank you so much.
Okay, now we're ready for competitor number 4. We did our signals right, but who's ready then? Okay, so competitor number 4 is Hyejin Cho, who is from the Department of Industrial and Systems Engineering. The title of this presentation is Causal Inference of Healthcare Data from Multiple Institutional Studies. Each year, about 4.2 million children undergo a surgical procedure. Medical ventilation, MV, is required for the most critical neuropediatric patients. More than 25,000 children each year lose their life because the MV was removed either too early or too late. Current decisions to remove MV for a child often relies on best practice for adult patients because similar studies on pediatric patients don't exist. This can pose a serious threat to children. When MV is removed too early or too late, lung function can be seriously impaired and the child can die. It is critical to have a strong guideline for pediatric patients that can help the health workers determine when to remove MV and maximize the chance of recovery for the child. Developing a new protocol is quite difficult. Hard challenge license, but it's a retrospective study. It's really hard to determine which factors are the most important in determining MV removal. Pediatric protocol should increase the survival rate while reducing the reconnection to MV, because reconnection to MV also increases the risk of death. I performed the two-stage of specific analysis that helps define a pediatric protocol. First, I used logistic regression to define the risk factors of the determining MV removal. The Delta model with the high sensitivity revealed that patient's age, weight, surgical risk and duration, and hospital type are the most important factors in determining MV removal. The next step of analysis was to use those factors to match patients one by one to evaluate the mortality outcome of the current health purpose against the lower line. I found that the current best practice for adults, at 6 hours, has a higher mortality rate than the lower line. As a result, the efficacy of the current best practice for adults is not supported for pediatric patients. A new recommendation of 12 hours is shown to increase the survival rate for pediatric patients. With the new protocol, we can save the lives of more than 8,000 children each year, while reducing the reconnection to MV by 50%. Thank you. Now we're ready for competitor number 5, who is Lenhardt from the School of Meteorology. The title is Measuring the Microscopic, Characterizing Clouds from Space.
For atmospheric water vapor to condense into a cloud on its own would require relative humidity values of close to 400%. These conditions are so unrealistic in our atmosphere that to condense a cloud from water vapor alone can only be done in a lab setting. In reality, each individual cloud droplet nucleates around an atmospheric aerosol. These atmospheric aerosols can come from a variety of sources, including smoke from fires, salt from sea spray, dust blowing from deserts, and pollutants from anthropogenic sources. Not only do these aerosols act as the building blocks of clouds, but their concentrations and chemical compositions impact cloud properties, especially in terms of how clouds interact with incoming sunlight. As we have a higher concentration of atmospheric aerosols, we can nucleate more cloud droplets. And a cloud that's made up of more cloud droplets has more surfaces for incoming sunlight to reflect from. This can act as a cooling mechanism amidst our ever-warming climate. However, these interactions between clouds and aerosols are highly uncertain relative to other climate forcings. So, to reduce these uncertainties, we need to make observations. We can directly measure aerosols using aircraft-based instrumentation, and these kind of observations are very valuable and reliable. However, it's expensive to make those kinds of observations, and so their scope is limited to a few times and locations across the globe. This is where my research comes into play. I'm using an observational data set from the Southeast Atlantic, where seasonal biomass burning results in a really thick layer of smoke aerosols that interacts with a large deck of stratocumulus clouds. I'm working on increasing the amount of information we have about smoke aerosol concentrations, using the fact that we can also indirectly measure them using an instrument called a LiDAR. A LiDAR is similar to a radar, but uses a downward pointing laser to gather information about the atmosphere at multiple altitudes. Using the mathematical relationships that I'm developing between our direct and indirect observations of aerosols, we're able to calculate their concentrations from the LiDAR measurements alone. So, where we were initially limited to an single aircraft track of smoke aerosol concentrations, we're now able to calculate them in a vertically resolved way and have them over a much wider region. Through this research, we have the potential to increase our information about aerosol quantities, learn more about how they interact with clouds, and greatly reduce climate-relevant uncertainty. Thank you.
Our amazing research nuggets continue here. We're competitor number 6, who is Sally Weiser, and she's from the Department of Sociology. The title is Illicit Masculinity.
Most, if not all of us, are familiar with the term toxic masculinity. When we think toxic masculinity, we think of things like physical aggression, immovable toughness, and sexual violence. What I want to discuss is a more focused idea of toxic masculinity that I refer to as illicit masculinity. Illicit masculinity is the idea that manliness and masculinity are linked to illicit activities such as crime and drug use. This idea of illicit masculinity suggests that illicit activities are more acceptable for men than they are for women, and contributes to something commonly referred to as the gender gap in crime. Gender gap in crime is exactly what it sounds like. Overall, men commit more crime than women. Crime, however, can be a broad term, so we're going to narrow this down. As a sociologist, I'm interested in the functions of our society. As our youth are our future, I am invested in their well-being. In the US, at least 1 in 8 youth abuse illicit substances. In 2019, 4,700 people in the US aged 15 to 24 died of an overdose. These facts are concerning, and I believe that illicit masculinity plays a major role in understanding adolescent drug use. Looking specifically at the gender difference in cocaine use among adolescents, I explored this idea of illicit masculinity in a sample of about 50,000 high school seniors. I measured their attitudes towards patriarchal ideas of masculinity through targeted survey questions. Youth who agree with statements such as, "It is usually better for everyone if the man is the achiever outside the home, while the woman stays with the home and family," are categorized as having patriarchal ideas, while those who disagree with such statements are categorized as having egalitarian views. Using predictive statistics, I find that on average, 10.5% of young men and 7.4% of young women are predicted to try cocaine, giving us a gender gap of 3.1%, which is marked by these dotted dashed lines on your screen. For youth who hold these patriarchal views, there is a larger gender gap of 4%, as predictions for young men go up, predictions for young women go down. On the flip side, for youth with egalitarian views, there is a statistically significant shrink in that gap, as it goes down to about 2%, putting that gap in half. Now, this change is due to predictions for young men lowering, or predictions for young women stay right around that average. Now, this is cool. This is cool because this tells us that the patriarchy and masculinity do play a role in the gender differences of adolescent drug use, especially for young men. Bringing awareness to and further discussing this idea of illicit masculinity can not only help us better understand the gender gap in crime, but can also help us address issues surrounding gender inequality and its effects on society. These toxic ideas of masculinity that are present in our society do not have to contribute to the use of toxic drugs by our youth. We can do better. What do you think?
And we will go with the next one from the Department of Chemical, Biological, and Materials Engineering. We have Laura Gomez. The presentation is entitled Enhanced Fuel Production from Renewable Oxygenated Compounds.
Imagine two children and their children in an air that is in average 15 degrees Celsius warmer than it is today. In a century from now, that could be the future for everyone. Now, if we imagine that the temperature would increase around 1.5 degrees Celsius for decades, that would be so scary, right? One of the alternative solutions to mitigate these problems involve an energy shift from fossil fuels to renewable sources. Biomass is an alternative energy source that represents 5% of the primary energy generation in the US. Even though 5% doesn't seem like a lot, biomass has the advantage that it's the only alternative energy source that can produce fuels that will work in the cars we drive here. Generally speaking, biomass is any organic material or waste rich in hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen. Biomass can be converted to fuels by chemical transformations. However, its conversion is not straightforward. One of the most typical steps for this process is the oxygen removal to make these molecules behave like gas. The presence of oxygen can cause many issues in the storage, transportation, and use as liquid fuels. Now, how can we remove the oxygen from biomass derived from? Well, the deoxygenation process, which involves the oxygen removal from the molecules, can be catalyzed with mineral oxides. Now, you may be thinking, what is a catalyst? Catalysts are the materials that speed up the chemical reaction by reducing the energy barrier to go from the reactants to the products. In my research, I have studied different mineral oxides as a catalyst that are selected for oxygen removal. I have found that the molybdenum oxide is a wonderful catalyst for deoxygenation of biomass. Recently, I found that incorporation of small platinum slurries really improve the catalyst performance. As you can see in the graph behind me, the incorporation of platinum also drops the energy barrier by 50%, favoring the production of fuels like molecules. I have also designed a kinetic model that will only help us to understand these chemical transformations at a molecular level, but also determine the impact of different reaction conditions and performance. I do believe that this knowledge can be applied industrially, and the refineries of the future can be like the ones we have today, but with a sustainable and environmentally friendly feedstock instead of fossil-based sources. Thank you.
And for competitor number 8, we have Rafael Zago, who is from the Department of Economics. The title of the presentation is Let There Be Light, Better Lights, Lower Nighttime Crimes.
Have you ever been in a situation where you're walking on the streets at late time, the streets are dark, no one is around, and that feeling of unsafety starts to consume yourself? If you have never been in a big city such as Detroit, Chicago, or New York, you probably know what I'm talking about. Well, as a native Brazilian, I have this feeling every single time I travel to São Paulo City. And to give an explanation on why I feel this way, in 2015, the rate of robberies per 100,000 residents in New York City was about 15 per month. In the same year, however, if we only count cell phone robberies, the rate was about 60 per month in São Paulo City. And about 60% of them were nighttime crimes. So how can a mega city such as São Paulo City find effective public policies to fight crime? Particularly, my research question is, can a better public lighting system increase resident welfare by reducing nighttime crimes? To answer this question, I studied an infrastructure program that took place in São Paulo City from 2015 to 2016 that replaced the lamps of some districts of the city to LED lamps. In the analysis, I used self-reported data on 5 different types of crimes: cell phone robberies and theft, vehicle robberies and theft, and homicides. The biggest challenge, however, is the fact that districts were not randomly chosen to participate in the program, and because of that, they are likely to be special in terms of economic activity, population, and other characteristics. To address this issue, I take advantage of the fact that some districts that were aiming to receive the grant ended up not receiving it because of budget cuts. Thus, in my main analysis, I compare districts that received the lands with districts that were aiming to receive the lands but ended up not receiving it before and after their intervention. I find that the program reduced overall nighttime crimes by about 11% per month. And this reduction was mainly driven by cell phone robberies, 26% per month, and homicide, 9% per month. In other words, in 3 districts, 1 life was saved every 3 months. Besides, neighboring districts also benefited from the program, experiencing reductions in cell phone theft, vehicle robberies, and homicides. In general, for every dollar spent, about 2.2 were saved in crime prevention. So the answer to the previous question is yes, a better public lighting system can be an effective tool to fight nighttime crimes in big cities. Thank you.
And for competitor number 9, that is Farid Omoumi, who is from the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering. The title of the presentation is Future of Breast Cancer Diagnosis by a Novel Imaging Method.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to briefly discuss about my dissertation project on using novel imaging technology for breast cancer diagnosis. We have many options for breast imaging, and yet the X-ray imaging is the gold standard for breast cancer screening. However, the X-ray imaging currently only focuses on the X-ray photon absorption and ignores the phase shift information. Here you can see the world's first ever clinical inline phase sensitive imaging system, which uses a microfocus X-ray tube to deliver a coherent X-ray, partially coherent X-ray beam, while the detector is moved away of the object to let the X-ray wavefront to interact with each other so we can retrieve the phase information by computer. We knew from our previous studies that the system has great potential. Nevertheless, the radiologist will be the end user for this system, and we didn't know how the human observer will perform if we use this technology. Therefore, I designed a series of subjective studies utilizing the ROC paradigm and 2 alternative force choice studies to evaluate the performance of the human eyes when we use this technology. The results were consistent with our previous findings and also promising. That being said, we moved to very first clinical trial in our collaborative facilities at the University of Utah. And my analysis from the collected data showed that we can reach comparable diagnostic accuracy with approximately 24% less radiation. So here's my take-home message. This system may offer an early cancer detection and superior detectability while it uses less harmful X-ray radiation. We have had many improvement in patient prognosis, but I believe this system could be a game changer in the field, and I can see this system maybe like improve even further, and changes are coming sooner rather than later. I greatly appreciate your attention.
Next, our final finalist, we have Anae Bain, who is from the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry. The title of this presentation is a basic building block for sustainable drug discovery.
Nature and medicine go hand in hand. What if I told you that over 50% of drugs either come directly from or are inspired by nature? Taxol, a potent chemotherapy, needs 3 to 4 100-year-old trees in order to prepare sufficient treatment for just 1 patient. It takes half a pound of Pacific heat in order to make 0.00004 pounds of Taxol for just 1 dose. That is a 99.99% loss. That is unsustainable. And that is why powerful, potent medications require unsustainable amounts of natural resources in order to make effective drugs at exorbitant prices. This is the problem. As a synthetic chemist, I'm making design drugs. And as we know, the best drugs come from Mother Nature herself. But it's not always easy following our parents' footsteps. Mimicking nature while I love it turns out to be extremely challenging. A bioactive molecule that can be grown within a plant that only needs water and sunlight may take a chemist 20 steps to replicate. What's worse, these steps are often precisely designed to target just that one drug. So, what can we do about this? Well, what I use method development. I take dirt cheap, readily available starting materials, and I design new ways to use them more effectively. I take the garbage and control in the environment and I use it to synthesize small molecules. In 2021 alone, small molecules accounted for over 65% of FDA-approved drugs. My research uses alkenes, a simple chemical building block, in order to construct spiral cycles, one of the least studied drug candidates, as well as sugars, the most abundant type of natural product. My research uses metal catalysts that can be regenerated, such as gold, copper, and zinc, to rapidly synthesize molecules that look and act like drugs. With these methods, we can create libraries of diverse drug candidates that can be screened and evaluated for environmental activity. This is how we solve the problem. We need to be able to make drugs in a more sustainable way. By developing concise, effective methods to make potent drug candidates, my research tackles this problem head-on. The methods that I have developed are general and can be routinely used by any chemist, like the recipe in the book. Because you see, it is evident that we cannot continue to harvest and expect there to always be more. We need to do this on, and we are. We get to be Mother Nature. Thank you.
Wasn't that great? Please come up here so we can give everybody a big round of applause. Yeah. Thank you so much for all of this. And before I dismiss the judges, Dean Hughes wants to say something. We welcome to sit down after you got your applause.
I just wanted to share something with everyone. You may not realize just how much work went into organizing the logistics and everything for this event. And I just wanted to thank Lori Early, who's here. Lori single-handedly made this happen this year. This would have gone out without her help. And also today, we have a whole bunch of people from the graduate college. The staff from graduate college have been here also helping to shepherd everyone around and make sure this went off without a hitch. So I just want to make sure we thank all of those people. I'll do it again for the reception. Let me turn the mic back over to Andy.
You all one more job, which is to vote for the People's Choice Form. So please do that before you leave, and then hand it to a graduate college staff member. And if the judges want to follow Lori back to the deliberation room, that'd be great. And I will see everyone at the reception and award ceremony in here lab. So thank you so much for coming, and we're waiting for the results now.
Hi, everyone. I'm here just to tell you it's going to be about 10 more minutes because we told people online on the live stream that we'll be announcing at 3:15. So I'm holding the results right here, but I'm going to sit on them for about 10 minutes. All right. So we'll be back here in a second. All right, I was teasing you all before, but now we're ready to get started. So thank you all for coming to this here for us to celebrate and acknowledge the 10 finalists that we had in the 3MT competition this year. As I said when I was introducing this is the sixth edition, sixth annual 3MT that we've done since we started this. And you know, each time I see this, I'm aware of just how amazing the work is that our students are doing in all their different areas and fields across the university. But it is hard when you're with a group of people that you don't know to present to them what you're doing and doing in a way that really makes sense and grabs their attention. It's hard for me, it's hard for faculty, it's hard for students. And so first of all, I just want to thank all of our 10 finalists. You all did an incredible job today. It really was amazing. So let's give it all. Part of what made this so amazing to me, I saw after we did the preliminary rounds, we did recordings of all of the presentations, and we brought another judging group together to take those lists, because after each preliminary round, we had a ranking of the presentations from that round, and we had to take those 6 groups and put those together. And so we watched all of those videos, and one thing, and they were amazing at that level as well, but it was really pretty phenomenal just how much all of you who were finalists improved on your presentations from the prelims. They were good already, and they were really outstanding here. So it's just really remarkable what you've all done. I would be remiss, and I was a little bit late saying this for the event itself, so I want to say this again for those of you that missed it. I wanted to thank all of the staff that helped to organize this. It's been an all hands on deck event for the graduate college, and we've got several people in the room here helping today, but also helping with the prelim rounds. Thanks to all of those folks. In particular, I want to thank Lori Hurley, my assistant, who's staying there with the video. We took this over for the first time this year, and I can tell you there's a tremendous amount of logistics and organizational stuff that went into this, and Lori did a fantastic job. So thank you again for putting this together, Lori. You know, one of the things I think also that makes this a little challenging is just getting in front of a room of people and presenting what you did. And we had, I think, 85 people, plus or minus 1 or 2 in the auditorium. Now, those of you who were finalists and presenting, it might have intimidated you to know that there were also 175 people on the live stream. So you had about 260 people total watching the presentations and voting on them. So with all of that, would you like the results? Yes. All right, so I'm going to read to you the runner-up, and then I will do the winner, and then I will do the people's choice. And what I'd like you to do, I'll call your name, please come up, we'll do a photo here to the right, and then I'd like you to stand off to the side while I call the other 2 winners from this event, and then we'll do a photo with the 3 of you together. We'll wrap it up there. All right, so let me start with the runner-up. Dramatic pause while I pull this out of the folder. So the runner-up of this competition wins a scholarship of $1,500, and the runner-up is Oyindamola Okuwa. The judges did struggle with this. There were some other folks that I can't call today, but also did a fabulous job. So I just want to share that with everyone as well. And our winner of the 3MT is Anae Bain.
Oh, no, I'm taking a video, it's fine.
Finally, our People's Choice Awards. So this was the 260 people in person and online voting for this. And it was Oyindamola Okuwa. We'll ask the three to stay up here and get a photo, but with that, I'm going to bring this to a close. I want to thank everybody for coming here today and for supporting your 3 and 2 finalists. Everybody did a wonderful job, and it's really great to have everyone here today. Have a great rest of the afternoon.